Hey everyone, welcome back to Astrovision 3D, where printing meets passion. If you're new here, buckle up. If you're returning, you already know what's about to go down. Another day, another absolutely amazing build we have on the way. This one's been calling to me for a while. And today, we answer the call of absolute Batman. This one's from Z Studios. Their design work, next level. The detail on the cape, the base, everything. It's the kind of model that just begs to be printed. But before we get to printing, we gotta do some digital surgery. Welcome to Chitubox, the pre-print battleground. Step 1. Arrange the pieces. This statue's massive. So we're working with 3 separate build plates. That's a lot of puzzle solving. Once that's done, we hollow the models. Gotta save resin and sanity. Drain holes, super important. You don't want uncured resin sloshing around inside, as it could potentially cause the model to burst. Take your time placing drain holes in spots that won't be visible on the final print, but are still functional for rinsing and cleaning both the inside and outside of the model. Next up, supports. I usually go with medium supports, and sometimes light ones for smaller parts. I let auto support do its thing first, then I jump in to clean it up, removing anything unnecessary and adding supports where it really matters. Once everything's supported, we slice. Rinse and repeat 3 times. This is where your patience gets tested. Like, do I really want to do this right? Or do I want to reprint this cape 3 days from now? And just like that, we've got all 3 build plates prepped and ready to rock. Next stop, the Elegoo Saturn for Ultra. Let's get printing. Before we kick things off, I always make sure the Saturn for Ultra is spotless. No leftover resin, no cured chunks, just a clean tank ready to go. Once it's all set, I refill the resin, load up the USB, unlock in build plate 1. Printing always feels a bit like magic, watching each layer come together, slowly revealing the model piece by piece. Print 1, done. I carefully remove the plate from the printer, letting any excess resin drip back into the vat to avoid waste. Then I use the sharp spatula that came with the printer to pop the parts off the build plate. I do this same process after every print, always before removing supports or washing. Now we move into cleanup mode. Before washing, I always remove the supports first. No point cleaning supports I'm throwing away, and it keeps my IPA from getting dirty too fast. Once the supports are off, the parts go straight into the wash station for 6 minutes in IPA to clean off any leftover resin. Once they're washed, I lay everything out to dry completely before moving to the curing stage. Printer gets a quick refill, next file queued up, and we go again. Let's settle in here and just enjoy the printing process. At the end of the day, that's what this channel is really about. Starting from a 3D file and turning it into something tangible. Same process for build plate 2, print, support removal, wash, dry, reset. Then we do it all again for plate 3. As we settle into this video, I just want to take a second to thank everyone who's been watching, sharing with friends, and dropping comments. It honestly means a lot and really keeps me going. If you're enjoying the content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. With everything washed, dried, and prepped, we cure each part for about 6 minutes. This locks everything in and finishes off the resin process. And that wraps up part 3. All 3 build plates printed, cleaned, cured, and ready for the next phase. Now we get to build. Now comes the part that's equal parts relaxing and satisfying, post-processing. I go through each piece to clean up leftover supports and sand down any rough areas. It's all about getting the surfaces as smooth as possible before we prime. The battle axe comes into parts, so I start by gluing it together. I don't show it here, but to really lock it in, I also use a bit of resin like a bonding agent. Just brush on a little resin between layers. Hit it with a UV flashlight to cure. And once it's solid, clean it with IPA and sand it smooth. Once everything's cleaned up and sanded smooth, it's time to prime. I use Vallejo Mecha Black, slightly thinned, and run it through my airbrush for a clean, even coat. To make that easier, I use small rod press clamps to keep the pieces stable while spraying. For larger parts, I actually test fit the model onto the base. It gives me a great preview of the final pose and works as a super practical handle for priming. Just make sure to rotate it and hit all those hidden spots underneath. That's always the challenge with bigger builds, finding a way to paint every surface without missing anything. This particular base printed as one full piece, which is a huge bonus. No seam lines to hide means I can focus completely on the finish and surface detail while spraying. With the model primed, we kick off painting with the base. Since this printed in one piece, I didn't have to worry about hiding any seams, which meant I could really focus on bringing out the detail and mood of the environment. The look I'm going for here is the entrance to Batman's cave, dark, gritty, industrial. These are the metal steps down into the shadows. I start by dry brushing the stone texture with a light grey to make those raised areas pop. It adds immediate dimension to the base. Next, I mask off the metal railing using green painter's tape. I wanted this part to have a really clean look, so I hit it with the airbrush for a smooth, brushed metal finish. After that base coat, I go back in with a darker aluminum tone, working it into the creases and edges to add shadow and weathering. With the tape removed, I do a few final touch-ups and reinforce the shadows using black to define the structure. While I'm at it, I also paint in the black detailing along the railing to sharpen up the look. Next, I move on to the platform. I dry brush bronze tones across the surface, carefully keeping the recessed areas dark. The goal here is to create the look of aged bronze, like it's been sitting in the shadows of the cave for years. With the base starting to come together, I move on to the light bar. For this, I was going for a glow effect, a soft white with a warm yellow undertone, like it's barely cutting through the darkness. I build that gradually, a bit more yellow near the bottom, fading to bright white at the top. I use a similar technique on the red lights, even though I didn't catch it on camera. I work from a deep red on the edges to a strong, bright red in the center, giving it a bit of a pulsing effect. Once that's locked in, I try something new, a weathering wash using the Noosh Weathering Medium from Pro Acryl. This adds grime into all the cracks and crevices and helps pull the paint job together. After the wash dries, I do one last dry brush using a few tones of green to give the stone a mossy, worn effect. It catches the light nicely and makes the whole thing feel alive and aged. Next up, we start painting Batman himself, beginning with the iconic yellow utility belt. If you've watched my videos before, you already know one of my go-to techniques for yellow, starting with a pink base layer. I take my time to apply clean, even layers with the airbrush. At this stage, it's important not to miss the crevices and shadows of the model, since these areas will influence how the yellow reads later on. Proper coverage here ensures that all the depth and detail comes through in the final result. Once the pink base coat is down and the airbrush is cleaned, I spray a white zenithal highlight from above. That creates a natural lighting effect, where the more exposed areas will catch brighter tones. The pink gives the shadowed areas an orangey warmth underneath, while the white highlights allow the top layers of yellow to pop and stay vibrant. With the belt now prepped, I start with Citadel's contrast yellow, which really thrives with this technique. It settles into the pink and white base beautifully, creating natural shadow and highlight variation. After that, I like to go back in with a brighter yellow to push the highlights further and really accentuate that shift in value from shadows to bright spots. It gives the belt a richer, more dynamic look overall. To finish it off, I spray the belt from below with an earth shade from Citadel. This ties the whole piece together and really helps match the tone and warmth of the comic book palette, and honestly, I think it came out great. You'll see at the end. It really pops when placed beside issue number 1 of Absolute Batman, as the colour nearly perfectly matched the title. With the utility belt drying, it's time to start on Batman's face. I begin by establishing subtle undertones, colours like blue, yellow, and red. These represent the natural variation and vascular tones found beneath real skin. I apply light coats of each tone in a controlled way to keep the transition soft and realistic. Once the undertones are in place, I go over everything with a thin layer of tan beige to unify the skin and bring it to life. It's a subtle start, but a strong foundation for the face. Now it's time to tackle the core of Batman's suit, the iconic grey. Rather than going with a flat, uniform tone, I build up gradients, starting with deep shadows in the recesses and working toward bright, almost white highlights on the raised areas. This technique emphasizes the muscle definition and brings out the sculpted detail of the model. I use the airbrush with precision, layering each pass to simulate realistic lighting. The idea is to make it look like the suit is being shaped by the light itself, not just painted on. I work on the torso and legs at the same time to make sure the lighting feels cohesive across the entire body. Painting these areas together helps me match highlights and shadows properly, and gives me a better sense of how the model will read when fully assembled. I always recommend test assembling during painting, especially for figures this size. Without it, you might accidentally highlight spots that end up hidden in shadow, or leave dark areas where light would actually hit. This extra step helps lock in the realism and makes the final result feel intentional. With the main suit painted, I shift focus to all the black elements, the leather straps, armor panels, gloves, boots, and cowl. A lot of these areas picked up overspray from earlier stages, so this is where I go back in and re-establish the deep black finish. It's one of the most satisfying parts, because as you clean up the edges and punch that contrast back in, the whole model starts to come together. Those sharp blacks cut through the grey and yellow, framing everything and reinforcing the sculpted detail. Let's move on to something unique to the new Absolute Batman series, the Battle Axe. In this 2024 version, it folds out from the bat emblem on his chest, bold, aggressive, and perfectly matched with the modern redesign. I start with the handle wrap, painting it a weathered cream white and shading it slightly to give it a worn, functional look that sets the tone for the rest of the piece. For the axe head itself, I keep it dark and tactical. I start with a deep black base, then dry brush a cool metallic tone over the edges and raised areas. This creates that worn steel effect, while still letting it read as black metal in the shadows. The goal is to catch light on just the right angles, giving it a bit of shimmer without overdoing the shine. It needs to look deadly, but grounded in Batman's world, sharp, weathered, and absolutely ready for action. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now it's time to finish Batman's head and wrap up the build. The base skin tones are already in place, but I want to push the contrast a bit more. I start with a brown wash to deepen the shadows and then reapply highlights to bring out the structure and definition in his face. To tie it all together, I add a pop of clean white to the eyes, giving them a subtle glow and focus. It's a small touch, but it makes the face feel sharp and alive. Then there's one last detail, the lips. I handle this differently every time, usually mixing a few tones until I find something that looks right. For this statue, I used a bit of Citadel's blood effect. It adds warmth and the slightly translucent quality that mimics the look of skin just beneath the surface. And with that, we're officially finished. From raw resin to fully realized statue, this build was a beast, but a rewarding one. Every step brought it closer to something you actually hold and admire. If you enjoyed watching this project come together, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Got a model you want to see next? Let me know below. I've got plenty of builds coming and some surprises I can't wait to show you. For now, I'll leave you with some final B-roll of absolute Batman in all his glory. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.